What if the herbs and formula that you're searching for to treat a patient is already inside the signs and symptoms? In traditional East Asian medicine, we don't treat signs and symptoms. We actually have the framework and the structure to decode that information, to understand what is causing the body to present in a very specific and structured way. There's a very famous Canadian philosopher who stated that the problem is not to find the answer, it is to face the problems. The solution is always inside the problem. This concept is found in Zen philosophy, psychology, design and systems thinking, logical breakdown, first principles. It is where thoughts and problems are not seen as obstacles, but they're actually ways in which to see the truth or reveal the truth in which one is presenting. The idea being that a deep understanding of a problem actually reveals the problem. In team, we take that literally. Every disease presentation, every sign and symptom, it is a shape, a structure. It is an identity to work something out. And when you have the right information and the framework, you can take this information and look into it to see where the source of this information is coming from, why the body is presenting with these very structured signs and symptoms. But to do that, you need the principles to guide you. Otherwise, simple cases, complex cases, you'll get lost in guesswork, you'll get lost in theory, coming up with weird conclusions and what herbs and formula structures to use. You need principles and a systematic evidence-based methodology to guide your understanding and guide the way in which you see and prescribe herbal medicine. Because too many practitioners, they get lost in guesswork. They come to these strange conclusions and modify herbs and formula structures based on random signs and symptoms because they don't understand the structure, they don't understand the framework, the shape of what the presentation is. And you end up chasing signs and symptoms instead of resolving the actual structure of why the presentation, the foundation on what builds the presentation, what builds the story, what builds the signs and symptoms that that person or patient is presenting with. Because the body isn't random, it speaks in a very specific language, and that's why you can always confirm and align primary signs and symptoms with abdominal presentations, with pulse, with tongue coating. It always aligns because it's always a structured methodology for the body to create or manifest something. So the story always has a root, and that's what herbal medicine and natural medicine was always about. It was always about understanding what the causative factors are and not just aligning or guessing herbs and formula structures based on herbs and theories to try and eliminate a name or a disease name or signs and symptoms, because you're not treating the cause, you're not treating the foundation of where that pattern or presentation is stemming from. So when you treat that structure, those signs and symptoms, using the tongue, the abdominal, the primary signs and symptoms, the pulse, the formulas will land, they can be replicated, they can be tested. I can teach you the information because it is a structured way to understand how something is presenting, and you can identify it with key indications. You cannot put yourself between those signs and symptoms because it's important not to use theory to put yourself in between what the presentation is and what the correct formula structure is. Your role as a practitioner or a doctor is to understand the story, understanding the name and the structure and the foundation, the shape, understand how and why the body is presenting in a very structured and specific way, and then you align the perfect formula structure to alleviate those signs and symptoms, to clear the obstruction and to restore natural function, because that is what your role is. Your role is to restore natural function, to identify a pattern or a disease name and find its root, identify what's causing and what's manifesting that story, and having a framework to eliminate the obstruction to restore natural function. So when you stop improvising and start identifying, this is where the team method is way beyond anything that you have seen before from TCM, classical Chinese medicine, which is just TCM, older version of TCM, naturopathy, all these symptoms. When you go from trying to use guesswork to identify a herb or formula structure or pattern and then actually have a way in which to identify it. This separates team from other systems of herbal medicine, especially in the Chinese medicine realm, because the solution is always inside the problem. You just need to learn how to know it.